Creating a sky environment in Blender, and this is going to be a very easy tutorial. There are two things we need. The first thing, the Blender skies texture obviously, and then clouds. So we're going to hop into a fresh Blender scene and create this from scratch. So here we are in the fresh Blender scene, and the first thing I'm going to be showing you guys is the easiest and fastest way to create clouds in Blender, and we'll be using our humble man, the default cube. So with the default cube selected, we're going to go into the shading properties, and we're going to go into the material preview or the viewport shading view. We're going to change our render engine from EV to cycles so that we better see the volumetrics, and then we're also going to remove the world so that we can see the HDRI. And here is the default cube rendered in cycles. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to delete the principal BSDF because we want to create clouds, and to create clouds we need a volume, and so we're going to be adding a volume scatter node. So Shift A to add a node, and under the shader volume scatter, and we're going to be plugging that into the volume output. Now you can see it already looks volumized. Anyways, if we increase the density, you can see it becomes thicker, and we can also change the color. So now what we want to do is we essentially want to control the density of the volume. We want to control it from 0 to whatever, but we also want that control to be randomized. So we want some places to be 0, some places to be 50, some places to be 1, some places to be 10. And essentially how we're going to control the volume is we're going to do that with a noise texture. So stick with me. Let's add a noise texture. So we have a noise texture, and if you plug this directly into the density, you can see nothing much is really happening. So we need something to control the thickness of the noise texture, or to control the brightness and the darkness of the noise texture. We need something to control that, and we're going to control that with a color ramp. So I'm going to Shift A and add a color ramp node under converter color ramp. So with the color ramp added, we can now adjust the sliders to say, okay, I want it more darker here and lighter there and whatnot. So we're going to plug this color ramp into the density, and let's preview that. Now you can see there is something is happening, but we can't see it clearly. Listen, this is where an important information comes in. In the density value, sorry, let me remove the color ramp. You can slide the density up from 0 to whatever, to any number. But now that the color ramp is plugged to it, the color ramp is clamping the highest value to 0.1. And we can see that if we select the bright value in the color ramp and we go down under the value, you can see it is set to 1. But then this value set to 1 may look like the highest value, because you can go from 0 to 1, may look like the highest value, but 1 is not the highest value. 1 is just like 1. Yes, 1 is bright. It's the brightest bright, but essentially the color ramp, we're dealing with the density, and in the density you can go above 1 because 1 is not the thickest density, but 1 is the brightest color. I don't know if that makes sense. So we're going to increase our value from 1 to 30, and now you can see it essentially increases the density to 30. So the density is now going from 0, which is black, which is the value 0 that you can get here. So this value is essentially controlling the value of the density. So the density is going from 0, which is black, to 30, which is this thick. And as you can see, we already have clouds that look good enough. Now in the noise texture, we're going to increase the detail so that it looks more detailed essentially. And then the scale, yes, let's reduce that to see the clouds more. And what we want to do now is we want to scale this cube, because this cube is practically too small to even be a cloud, talk less of a bunch of clouds. So I'm going to scale this cube up. And now what we want to do is we want to apply the scale with Ctrl A and apply scale. So now here we fall into a problem. We can see that looking from the top view also, what is happening is, as we increase the scale of the noise texture, what is essentially happening is that on this cube, instead of making the noise go around the cube like a volume, what it's doing is that on this cube there are different planes. If you guys can look at my mouse, there are different planes, and on each plane it's kind of doing a noise which is like random value. So it's doing a random value based on a plane level to fill up the cube, sorry. And we don't want that. We want it to take the cube as a whole volume itself. So we're going to do that by adding a texture coordinate node, and we can just simply do that with Ctrl T. And then you can see it's selected on generated. We want to change it from generated to object. So it's not using a generated texture coordinate. It's using the object as the texture coordinate. So now that is done, we can see a lot of changes that have happened, and what essentially has happened is that the noise is now too thick for the object, so we have to reduce it. Sorry, the scale of the noise texture is too thick for the object, so we have to reduce the scale. So let's do that. Yeah, so this is looking quite alright. Looking nice. So let's just drag the black in so that we can have more spaces without clouds. And you can see everything is essentially looking really nice. So we're just scaling it up and making sure things pan out well. So yeah, basically we have clouds. Now for where the form begins, we want to add the sky texture. That we're going to be using the Blender sky texture. So what we want to do is, in the shading properties, we want to change it right here from object to world. And in the world shader, you can see we just have a background and an output node. So I'm going to be shifting. I'm going to be adding a sky texture. I'm going to be adding a sky texture, and we'll just plug that into the color. And now you can see that things are happening. So yeah, this can go for a sky. If you just scale the cube up, let's say, this can pass for a sky, but now we want to adjust the sky's texture to make it look like we're actually in the sky. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to increase the size of the sun. Then under this dust, air and ozone, when you're in the sky, practically there is more air though, but there is less dust, so we're going to reduce the dust. And we're also going to reduce the air, because yes, there is more dense air, but it's not like when we're on the ground. Yeah, and that just reducing the air, sorry, not increasing it, makes the sky bluer. So we're going to reduce the air and dust. I'm just going to leave the ozone at where it is practically. And now you can see that this is already looking nice. So what we want to do now is in the object, which is the cloud, we want to adjust these clouds to make them look like clouds. Let's reduce them a little bit. Let's crop it to that. And now we can see that from here, this is already looking like a bunch of clouds in the sky. Another thing we want to do is, you can see this down part, it has a dark edge, but essentially when you are in the sky, there's going to be like a lot of clouds on the ground to cover up. So we're just going to duplicate these clouds we've already created with Shift D and take it down. And what we want to do to this one, we want to make it a material of this one. We just want to make the cloud more, I say, dense here. So basically, you can see we have something that looks nice. We have something that looks like we are in the sky. So yeah, we basically have something that looks like we are in the sky, and we can also add like a gradient texture to fade the clouds or the lower clouds from this edge, kind of fade it in so that they blend with the environment, and all that just makes it look like we're in the sky. So to create a sky in Blender is just simple. You just have this noise texture volumetrics with the Blender sky texture. Yeah, so If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. And I use this sky texture method to create a video that's already out on my YouTube channel. It's just a short visual effect shot, so make sure you check that out. And until next time, more stuff's coming, more crazy stuff's coming. Peace.